US combat mission in Iraq will officially end by year's end. Now, during a meeting at the White House with the Iraqi Prime Minister, President Joe Biden stressed the US is not turning its back on a strategic partnership.
It's just to be available to continue to train, to assist, to help, and to deal with ISIS as it arrives. But we are not going to be, by the end of the year, in a combat mission.
Iraq has demanded an end to the combat mission, and the announcement makes the current status quo official. More details now from CNN's Awa Damon.
U.S. forces will be remaining in Iraq, perhaps a change in semantics, no longer being called combat troops, but rather as an advise and assist unit. And this is what the Iraqi Prime Minister says his country needs. But it's not just ongoing training of the Iraqi security forces. What is also especially critical to Iraq is America's intelligence sharing and other capabilities. And it would seem that at this stage, nearly a decade later, both the U.S. and Iraq want to avoid what happened towards the end of 2011 under the Obama administration, when what many would say a premature withdrawal of U.S. forces took place, which ended up being one of the many key factors that allowed for the reemergence of ISI, the Islamic State of Iraq, ISIS's predecessor, which then very quickly grew and morphed into the most formidable terrorist organization that we have seen to date. But this ongoing U.S. troop presence, despite what is being publicly said, is not just about training and assisting Iraqi forces. It's not just about an ongoing battle against ISIS, which does continue to carry out devastating attacks in Iraq, albeit not to the same degree that it used to in the past. This is also about creating a counterbalance to Iran's growing influence, a counterbalance to the strength and power of the Iranian-backed Shia militias that many will argue are even more powerful than the Iraqi security forces themselves. Arwa Damon, CNN, Istanbul.
Douglas Oliphant served under both the George W. Bush and the Obama administrations as the National Security Council's director for Iraq. He is with us now from Culpeper in Virginia. Douglas, thank you for taking the time to be with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I want you to listen to the White House press secretary dodging a question about the number of U.S. troops inside Iraq by year's end. Here she is.
The first step is the change in mission, the end of combat, of a combat role in Iraq, and moving to more of a train, advise, and assist role. That is what the Iraqi leadership has conveyed they want to see on the ground.
Is this all a bit like the old shell game? Because most U.S. troops currently in Iraq will stay in Iraq, but they'll be reclassified, they'll become advisors and trainers. The reality on the ground, though, seems really unchanged. Is that accurate?
In a lot of ways, the reality on the ground will be unchanged, which of course makes you ask why we just didn't make this announcement 6 or 9 months ago and avoid all the drama of the last, 6 or 9 months. But no, I don't think there'll be a lot of change on the ground. We may see some labels change. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the name of the operation change. Maybe they'll downgrade the headquarters in Iraq. It's currently commanded by a 3-star general. Maybe that gets demoted to a 2 or a 1-star general, which is more appropriate for a training mission. But if you're a captain or lieutenant or major doing your job on the ground in Iraq, it's probably going to look really, really similar.
We heard President Biden talking about the ongoing fight against ISIS remains a priority. We have some more details from a senior administration official who told CNN, nobody is going to declare mission accomplished. The goal is the enduring defeat of ISIS. We recognize you have to keep pressure on these networks as they seek to reconstitute, but the role for U.S. forces and coalition forces can very much recede, deep into the background, where we are training, advising, sharing intelligence, helping with logistics. At the same time, I want you to listen to the view from a general with the Kurdish Peshmerga forces. He's calling for an increase in the number of U.S. forces because of ISIS. Here he is.
ISIS starting to reorganize themselves again, and they are very active, and they have almost everyday terror attack against the civilian target. The troops on ground be fighting against this terrorism group, but it was not easy and was not so possible to defeat ISIS without the support with the coalitions.
So right now, is the current troop level sufficient to counter the threat from ISIS? Is there a point when you can see US troops needing to go back in significant numbers? And maybe not just to deal with ISIS. Is this a counterpoint for Iran as well, or Iran-backed militias?
Well, let's stick with ISIS for a minute. The ISIS problem now, and it still exists. Let's not kid ourselves. There is still an ISIS presence in Iraq, but it's an intelligence and police problem, not really a military one. If we think back to the ISIS war we saw 5 years ago with the seizure of Mosul and the recapture of other Iraqi cities, we knew exactly where ISIS was. They were in the cities, but getting them out of there was really hard. That was a military problem that took coordinated military effort. Now, it's really an intelligence police problem. Finding ISIS is really hard. We really have no earthly idea exactly where we are. We know the general areas they work in. But finding exactly where they are is hard. Once you do, it's a police problem. You send someone to go arrest them because they're in relatively small groups. No, you don't need U.S. troops to do this because you really don't need any troops to do it. It's a police problem, occasionally a special forces problem if you've got a particularly nasty group. But you don't need the large bodies of troops that you needed during the big fights in the Iraqi cities 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Do you need troops there for Iran at some point?
Well, we have no authorization to do that. I don't think the Iraqis want our help with the Iranians, as opposed to ISIS. They were perfectly happy to take that help. So no, I think it's very difficult to see a role for U.S. troops fighting against the Iranians inside Iraq, unless we care to invade the place again, which I would strongly recommend against.
Douglas, we're out of time, but thank you so much for being with us. It's appreciated.